Hi, welcome to another video from me, Steve Jones of Redgate Software and SQL Server Central. So in this video, this is the second video on my Bringing DevOps to the Database series. In this one, I'm actually going to show you continuous integration. And it follows on from the first video that covered version control, and there'll be a third demo that looks at releases. In this video, again, I want you to think about the concepts of continuous integration, what we're doing, and not the specific technologies or tools that I use, because I could use many different technologies or tools to make this happen. Just think about the overall concept. So again, as a reminder in this video, let me show you what we've got set up. So in our system, we wrote some code in this database. We're trying to get it to this database, and we want it to flow through all of these in an automated fashion in a DevOps flow. So in this case, we've already written the code from the previous video, and you'll see here that I added a row to this table. I created this table, which is empty, and then I wrote this store procedure. So I committed this and created a pull request. And as a matter of fact, when I created that pull request, continuous integration actually ran. So the timing is here is hard for you to understand, but I just recorded the other video. So it was about 9 minutes ago that this ran. And in fact, it failed. And you can see here it's saying that the test step finished with errors. Now I can see all the logging here if I want and see what actually went wrong and all these details. But what I really want to look at here is that because I'm integrated into the tool, I actually can see which tests I ran that passed and failed. In this case, 4 passed, 1 failed. The filter down here is just fails, but you can see that my table without a primary key failed. And if we look over here, the table I just created here failed because it didn't have a primary key. Now, when I do this presentation, I always remind people, if you're working with SQL Server, primary keys are really important. There are very few reasons not to have one. So all of you that are developers, please, when you create a table, create a primary key. But how do I do that? Well, I actually wrote some code down here that would do this. So in this case, I don't really want a null primary key, so I'm just going to make that not null. And then I'll add the constraint. I use as a standard the table name with PK for my primary keys. I'm going to add it to that particular column there. Oh, I think I already ran this. Maybe that's what I did wrong there. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to alter procedure that get 5. And I'm going to change this with an alias because I don't want this procedure, if I run this, I don't want that to actually come back with this no column name. So I want it to come back with a column name. And you can see if I were to execute this now, that it would actually just give me that 5 as a column name. Just like I did before, what I really want to do now is commit this to version control. So I've changed that thing. In this case, you can see I did already run that constraint in here. We'll again link this over and I'll show you why in a minute. Fixed PK. I might actually do 2 commits here because if these were unrelated items as they are, I would want them separate. But for the sake of this demo, let's just keep them together. Now we'll push that out there. And again, we'll go back to our Azure DevOps, to our repo. And in this case, again, it has recognized that I've updated this. So I'll make another pull request. Now in general, I would want to have somebody else on this pull request to review it. So I don't have required reviewers or optionals, but for example, I might add Grant or Ryan or somebody else on my team to do this. But for the sake of this particular demo, I'll do it myself. And if I come over to this pipelines area, which is my CI area, you can see that this just started. So right now, this actually started running. And if I click into the details of this, what we'll see is that this is running right now. It's been running for a few seconds. I'm getting the timing here. This is just command line driven. So it's running a bunch of Git commands here. Now it's running some build steps. It's going to run some test steps. In this case, I have 2 test steps, and then it'll sync my integration. So while this is running, let's come back over here and let's take this code up here, make a new query window. We'll paste this code in and we'll switch databases. So if I run this, you'll see I get invalid object names for 2 of those objects. And my South Florida does not have the SQL Saturday entry in here as of yet. But that's because this is still running. So right now it ran my database standard, so it passed my primary key test in here. In this case, all 5 tests passed. Now it's running some logical tests. The reason that I added that number in there is because Azure DevOps is an integrated system. In this case, my South Florida, actually I want to click there. My South Florida demo task actually has this live demo task, which was that 241. And you can see in here, I created this demo a little while ago. I merged the PR, I fixed the PK with the new commit, merged it again. And so it's linked to all of these items that I've done in code. And if I needed to, I could actually click through and say, what did I actually change there? And here was that original commit. Now we'll see where we stand with this running. In general, this should be a few minutes. It has actually gotten all the way out of there. If I come back here and look at my tests, it says everything failed. In this case, you can see I have way more logical tests than standards tests. And if I were to actually now run this, we're in integration, this runs just fine because I've deployed code to this database without me having to touch it. By going through a review process, by going through some automated systems, I've included this continuous integration. And the big takeaways here are that we can follow this same process over and over again, where somebody creates a pull request in the repository. They have somebody else look at that pull request. In this case, I did it myself, but in Teams, you should have somebody else look at it. And then the automation kicks off that will go through and tell me, have I done something wrong, which I had done here, or has it passed all the tests that we as individuals think are important? And if you're wondering what those tests are, what I've actually done here, this is a border we can add pass. I've just written a bunch of tests. So these are different T-SQL-T tests that are testing functions or code that I've allowed into my system, along with some of the standards-based tests from like SQL Cop that says things like SP underscore, dynamic SQL, primary key, etc. Things that are potentially problematic for me. So again, we've managed to get code from database 1 to database 2. And in the next video, we'll see how we move that further along the pipeline.